When you were 7, a single summer felt like a lifetime. The days stretched on forever. The walk to school felt like crossing a continent. The gap between one birthday and the next seemed almost too vast to cross. And then one day, you woke up an adult, and the years started vanishing. Faster and faster, like water down a drain you can't plug. You blame your calendar. You blame routine. You tell yourself it's just what getting older feels like. But the real answer is far stranger than a busy schedule. Time isn't moving faster. Your brain is quietly rewriting the rules of how long a moment lasts. Here's the first strange truth. The speed of time is not measured by clocks. It's measured by you. Every sense of duration you've ever felt was built inside your own head, from memory and attention and the raw novelty of whatever was happening around you. The clock on the wall ticks at a constant rate. Your experience of it does not. So, why does a year feel shorter now than it did when you were small? In 1897, a French philosopher named Paul Janet proposed an answer so simple it almost feels like a trick. You judge each stretch of time against the total length of life you've already lived. To a 2-year-old, a single year is half of everything they've ever known. Enormous, unforgettable. To a person of 50, that same year is one slice out of 50, a thin sliver pressed against a thick stack of all the years that came before. This is the proportional theory. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Picture your life as a ladder. When you're young, each rung is wide because each year is a huge fraction of your whole existence. As you climb, the rungs get narrower, packed closer together. The same 12 months that once felt like an eon now feel like a footnote. Nothing about the year changed. What changed is the size of the container you're measuring it against. A year poured into a small life fills it. A year poured into a large life barely wets the bottom. The American psychologist William James noticed the same thing a century before neuroscience could explain it. Writing in 1890, he described how the years of later life seem to grow hollow and collapse in on themselves. While the first experiences of youth are remembered in vivid, almost unbearable detail, he felt time accelerating long before anyone could measure why. But proportion is only part of the story. If it were the whole story, time would shrink smoothly year after year. It doesn't. Some years crawl, some vanish entirely. Why? The answer lives in memory. Think about the last time you went somewhere completely new. While you were there, the days felt long and crowded and full. But the moment you got home, the whole trip seemed to have flown by in an instant. The science writer Claudia Hammond called this the holiday paradox. In the living of it, novelty stretches time. In the remembering of it, that same novelty compresses it. The two clocks disagree, and both of them are you. Here's why. Your brain doesn't record time like a stopwatch. It records events. When something new happens, your brain lays down dense, detailed, high-resolution memories. And later, all that richness makes the stretch feel long. But when nothing new happens, when one day is a near perfect copy of the last, your brain saves almost nothing. And a span of time with no memories inside it collapses to nothing the instant you try to recall it. Now, think about your childhood. Everything was new. Your first bicycle, your first sight of the ocean, your first taste of something bitter, your first real fear, your first heartbreak. Your brain was recording constantly, stamping memory after memory into the permanent record. Of course, those years feel enormous. They're densely, almost impossibly full. And your adult years? You wake up, you commute, you work, the same coffee, the same drive, the same glowing screen, the same hallway, the same Sunday dread. Your brain, efficient as ever, stops bothering to record what it has seen 1,000 times. It switches to autopilot. And autopilot leaves no footprints in memory. This is the cruel twist. The very thing that makes you feel safe and competent and settled. Routine, familiarity, knowing exactly how everything works is the exact same thing quietly eating your years alive. The neuroscientist David Eagleman has spent much of his career chasing this elasticity of time. In one famous experiment, he sent volunteers into genuine, stomach-dropping freefall, dropping them backward off a tower into a net, just to see whether raw fear could slow time the way it does in the movies. In memory, the fall did feel longer than it truly was, because terror flooded their brains with novelty and detail, packing every fraction of a second with information. More memory laid down, more time felt. The duration you feel, Eagleman concluded, is nothing more than a story your brain reconstructs afterward. using however much it managed to record. There's another reason your earliest years feel so vivid. Researchers call it the reminiscence bump. When older adults recall the most important, emotionally charged memories of their lives, an unusual number cluster between the ages of roughly 15 and 25. First love, first freedom, first job, first apartment, first time leaving home for good. These were the years stuffed with firsts, and firsts are precisely what the brain remembers best. Long after your 40s have blurred together, those early years stay sharp and bright, glowing like a fire you can still feel the heat coming off of. But perhaps the strangest theory of all comes not from a psychologist, but from an engineer. In 2019, Adrian Bejan, a mechanical engineering professor at Duke, argued that as you age, the actual rate at which your brain processes images slows down. When you're young, your neurons are fresh, your connections short and quick, and you take in a rapid flicker of mental snapshots, many frames every second, like a high-speed camera running hot. As you age, those pathways grow longer, more tangled, more worn, and the signals travel more slowly. You capture fewer mental images in the same stretch of real clock-measured time. And here's the haunting part. If you record fewer frames per second, then more clock time slips passed in the gap between each one. The world, seen from the inside, appears to speed up. A child and an adult can stand inside the very same minute. The child living it in rich, granular slow motion, while the adult watches it on fast forward. Same minute, same clock. Two completely different experiences of how long it lasts. So, is this just something that happens to you? Something you have to accept, like gray hair and aching knees? No. And this is where the science turns from a diagnosis into a gift. If time speeds up because your days have become predictable, then the cure is hidden inside the disease. Novelty is the lever. Every time you do something genuinely new, take a different route home, learn a skill that frightens you, travel somewhere that disorients you, sit across from someone who changes how you see the world, your brain wakes up. It snaps out of autopilot. It starts recording again. And that memory, when you finally look back on it, will make that stretch of your life feel long and full and real. This is why a single weekend in an unfamiliar city can feel longer in memory than a month of identical Tuesdays. It's why people who keep learning, keep exploring, keep saying yes to the uncomfortable thing, so often feel like they've lived more than the calendar says they have. Not because they were granted more hours, but because they filled the hours they had with things worth recording. Warren Meck, another Duke researcher, spent years studying the brain's internal clock and found it bound up tightly with dopamine, the chemistry of attention, focus, and reward. When you're fully engaged, fully present, your inner clock runs differently than when you're numb, scattered, half watching a screen. Presence isn't only a spiritual idea spoken about in quiet rooms. It's a measurable input into how long your one life actually feels from the inside. So the question is no longer why time speeds up. Proportion shrinks it. Routine erases it. Slowing neurons blur it at the edges. The only question left is what you intend to do about it. You can't add years to the far end of your life on command. None of us can. But you can change how those years feel from the inside, and that matters just as much. You can break the autopilot. You can choose the unfamiliar over the comfortable. Even when comfortable is easier, you can pay real attention, not partial, not distracted, to the ordinary moments you'd normally let dissolve. A face across the table, a meal, the specific, unrepeatable quality of light on a perfectly ordinary afternoon. Because the cruelest illusion is the quiet belief that you're running out of time. You're not in the way you fear. What you're actually running low on is novelty, attention, the simple willingness to be surprised by your own life. And those, unlike the years themselves, are entirely within your power to refill. Starting today, starting now.